Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Susan Ward. I'm with the Bureau of Student Wellness with the New Hampshire Department of Education. And I want to thank the members on the live panel today for joining us and speaking with us about strengthening families and empowering families. And our panel will discuss resources and programs that are shared with schools and families in several different communities. And I'll just take a minute and we'll go around the room and have everyone introduce themselves. And we can start with Borja.
Hello, my name is Borja Alvarez Toledo. I'm the president and CEO of Waypoint, which up to 2 years ago was called Child and Family Services of New Hampshire. So I'm excited of being part of this, and I'm going to talk today about sort of the warm light a little later.
And then I'm going to introduce Brenda. If you could just tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Great. Hi, I'm Brenda Giesberg. I am the Executive Director of the Upper Room Family Resource Center in Derry. And I'm here today to talk to you guys about family resource centers and how we can partner together with you to strengthen families and provide services. Glad to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. We're so glad to have you as well. And I'll hand it over next to Maria.
Good afternoon. My name is Maria Doyle, and I'm a family support program specialist at New Hampshire Children's Trust. And we work alongside family support and strengthening programs and others who are working to ensure safe, stable, nurturing relationships and environments for children across New Hampshire.
Great. And then I will hand it over to Sue.
Hi, I'm Sue Watson, Program Specialist for the Department of Economic Housing and Stability for Family Support Services. And I work with Brenda, Maria, and Borja on the state level around strengthening families programs and prevention programs statewide.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sue. All right, and I will hand this back over. I believe it might go to Maria.
I think so. So we're so pleased today to be with you to talk about some of the resources and places that are empowering and strengthening families across New Hampshire. And we, and hopefully setting up some new opportunities for collaboration. So those of us that are here today and many of us throughout New Hampshire really see our work as focusing on building family protective factors. So this is a much different model than just focusing on the challenges that any family might be experiencing at a particular time or problems that a family is having. But instead, we believe that by working on building family strengths, and these very specific family strengths that you see on this slide, that have research behind them to show that when families have these 5 characteristics robust in their life, that what we know is that families are their strongest, kids are their best, and that there's a reduced risk of child abuse and neglect happening. So there's lots of information. New Hampshire Children's Trust is a great source of information for learning more about these protective factors and specifically what actions people in any situation or working in any way that their work touches families can promote these protective factors. And we really see that there are entire, every family has a network that helps promote their protective factors. So it's not just agencies or services or programs, but really the fact that people can turn to their neighbors, the fact that people go to the library to get either information or to connect with others or to have things with their kiddos, opportunities for their kids to expand their reading or to connect with other peers. These are all ways that families are having their protective factors promoted by visiting their rec programs, and certainly things at school support kids and families in growing protective factors. And we see all of this network as being part of what are keeping families strong. And chief among them that are doing this for families are family resource centers. And we really see kind of we see all of these on this slide. You'll see different things that help keep families strong, whether they're just approaching their pediatrician or even a librarian about getting information, or a neighbor that has kids the same age, or giving kids an opportunity to play team sports can help build social emotional competence, or attending a play group at their family resource center. And then you'll see the continuum goes up to providing more intensive opportunities to get support when families are experiencing problems and challenges. And the unique thing about family resource centers is they are really working with families at all of these different levels in a way that few resources and communities are helping to do. One of the ways that family resource centers support families is through providing support to families where a relative other than a parent is caring for a child. And Sue Watson's going to talk a little bit about that.
Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Yeah, we wanted to take this opportunity to talk to you about a new program that has been being developed over the last year with the New Hampshire Children's Trust and Family Resource Center statewide. As we know, we have thousands of families in the state of New Hampshire that are in a kinship relationship. Whether that is a formal relationship through the courts or through DCYF, or if they're informal, that families are supporting each other and providing that support to each other through a kinship, we want to be there to support them. So anyone who is in a kinship relationship, whether it's formal or informal, as stated below on the slide, whether your relationship is a DCYF placement, a legal guardianship, foster care, adoption, or informal agreement, we want to be able to support those families to navigate the system. We understand there are a lot of benefits and a lot of other systems that families now have to navigate that they may have never navigated before. But we also want to work with those children through the Family Resource Center and through the families to provide social connections, provide family groups, come to other parenting ed programs that are in their community, find out about other ways to have your children connected, or those children in those kinship relationships connected with one another. So it's not just about getting services, but more about that social community and being there to support one another. Many of the family resource centers have parent support groups and kinship support groups, so you can connect with other families, and your students can connect with other students who may be in the same situation that they are. So the program is located throughout Family Resource Centers statewide. There are 20 different part-time navigators statewide to help provide this service. And at the end, we'll give you a list of, Maria's going to go over how to access these family resource centers and where to find these centers near you. But if you want more information too, please go to the New Hampshire Children's Trust website, and there is a brochure that can be printed out and used to give to families. And there's also a referral form to help you connect your students or your families with the program. Maria?
Sure. So, another resource that's offered from one of the important family support and strengthening agencies in New Hampshire, Waypoint, has a warm line, and Borja's gonna let us know about that.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Sue. I have to say that before I talk about the warm line, I absolutely need to talk about family resource centers, because at Waypoint we have 16 locations across the state. And we are really working hard to make sure that many of those centers become our family resource centers, and that they get actually the qualification of being family resource centers of quality. we believe that it is really a good way to integrate all of the services that are offered by Waypoint, but by many other community partners. And it's really a point of entry for families, providing all range of support. So we're really very, very excited and have partnered with Maria and Sue on many occasions. And we're going to continue to partner, I think, because this movement is really growing in New Hampshire. But I'm here actually to talk about the Warm Line. So let me tell you a little bit of the history of the Warm Line. So around March 27th, I believe it is, we actually at Waypoint sent all of our 300 workers home. There was a stay-at-home order, and we had to, the first thing that we had to do is make sure that everybody had a computer so we could continue to support the families through telehealth. So we deployed 70 laptops into everybody's hands so that they continue to be connected to the kids, to the parents, to the homeless youth, to all of the services that we provide in New Hampshire. Very quickly, we started having conversations about the stress that the families were under. Not only did they have to sort of now work from home, which was stressful because sometimes they didn't have the proper space to do that. They also had to, and obviously all of you teachers know this because you were going through all of the same stresses, trying to figure out how to teach remotely. But the parents needed to support their kids also to learn remotely. So these dynamics became incredibly stressful for families. And what we quickly noticed is that families that were already under a lot of stress were actually going into crisis. And if families had issues with substance misuse, those were exacerbated. Domestic violence was actually rising and through the roof. And we also had data and research from other situations like Katrina and Sandy, where we knew that families actually go into crisis and disintegrate. So having a meeting internally, we said, what can we do to provide some support to the families? And we decided to create what we've called the Warm Line. And basically is an 800 number that Maria later on is going to put on the screen so you all have access to it. But it's really, rather than a hotline, which will deal with the crisis, what we wanted to do is provide the support to families around child behaviors, routines in the house, how to negotiate spaces. All of the things that we were hearing were creating a lot of stress to the families. So the other thing that happened at the same time is we heard from Joe Ripson from DCYF, which I think some of you have already heard on another one of these talks and websites. And we heard that there was a dramatic decrease in the number of calls to the hotline at DCYF. And we knew that kids were being abused and neglected in probably a higher rate than in normal times. And we felt we wanted to do something to provide prevention. So what does the Warm Line do? So when someone calls the 800 number from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., what we do is we get very, very simple information to the parents, and we make a referral to one of our family resource workers that actually are trained in parenting skills, are trained in parenting programs, Parent as Teachers, Healthy Families America. So they have a lot of the curriculum of how to help parents navigate situations with kids. And what we offer is really an hour of consultation and being able to sort of work through the issues and get some advice and some counsel from our specialist. It has been incredibly helpful for families. And in fact, one of the things that has happened is some families have said, can I have these again? And we're fortunate that we have a lot of these parent and support programs ourselves at Waypoint. So we've actually made referrals to our own programs because it sounded like the family needed to continue receiving the support. So how did the kind of the funny thing or not so funny thing about the Warm Line is one of the things I did is I talked to Joe Ripson and other people at DHHS and said, we're thinking about doing this, but we certainly do not want to do something if the state is thinking about doing something similar. We don't want to duplicate services. And not only did they say it was a good idea, they mentioned it in one of those crisis meetings to the governor, who then said, I'm going to announce it in 48 hours. So to be totally honest, we were not ready to set it up in 48 hours, but the announcement was made on TV by the governor, and we had to really work through the weekend to make sure that we had all the systems in place and the IT to provide the support to families. So we get all kinds of calls. I checked recently, and we've received something like 225 calls in the warm line. And we actually have capacity to receive more because we have almost 40 hours covered of a family support specialist. And if we have one that that needs a second one, we'll find a second one to provide support to a family. But we have gotten calls. Some of the calls we've gotten were more crisis calls, and we had to actually refer to DCYF and make sure there was a report or abuse and neglect. But many times it was really stresses around, I don't have services, I don't have food, I don't know how to negotiate the space. My kid has ADD, and he needs to be in contact with other kids and to sort of be out and running because I can't contain him. A lot of those situations were some of what we've been hearing every week from the families. And the feedback we've gotten from the families is that just having that, warm person at the end of the line, sort of like, help calm down and give strategies has been incredibly helpful. So, so again, most of the calls have been around providing that support. And we have also made a lot of connections because we have many, many resources, not only just ourselves, but we know where to find them. So we've actually made sure that the families were connected to the appropriate resource. We established this sort of as a crisis situation, and we thought we were going to be doing this until the summer. But then we've actually looked internally at what a great service this is for families in this time. And certainly we know that the crisis is not over, and we know that different schools are doing different models of learning, and that continues to be very stressful, for parents and for kids. And we've made a decision to actually continue to offer the warm line for the foreseeable future. And it's really a way to provide that one-on-one, 1 hour support from a specialist and give tips to families on how to cope with the stress. So that's our warm line. And I believe I'm turning it back to you, Maria.
Yes, thank you, Borja.
Thank you.
So we just wanted to give you an opportunity. As I said, family resource centers, including the ones at Waypoint and ones throughout the state, are providing all kinds of recreational, parent support, home visiting, all different kinds of services, and have continued and do continue to do so even in these times of social distancing. And one family resource center in particular, the upper room that serves Derry, just has such a strong relationship with their local school system that we wanted you to hear from Brenda, who directs that center.
Great. Hi. My name is Brenda Giesberg. I introduced myself earlier. And first of all, I want to say thank you to the teachers who are out there on the front line right now, working through some pretty incredible times with families, students, and unpredictability. I can't imagine your day to day, yet I want to be in partnership, and we are in partnership with our current schools. I think, I want to mirror a little bit what Borja said, that a lot of us back in March just really shut down and began working immediately in a way that none of us understood how to, but we did it and we worked together. And certainly that first and foremost included schools, because that's where our kids were going. And then we agencies were trying to help figure out what some of those gaps were for families. And like many family resource centers, we heard very similar things that Waypoint heard. Families were concerned, they were stressed, there were fears. And I also saw families be extremely resourceful. And I think some of that resourcefulness came from confidence given by school staff, school social workers, some of the school administrators who allowed families to express concern and then directed them to their local resources. We have a wonderful partnership with the Derry school systems and Pinkerton Academy and some of our surrounding school districts. And I say kudos to them because really they've thought very far out of the box in many ways to connect families to resources. When we talk about concrete supports, families do need support. They need wraparound. They do need that warm line to talk to people. But people were worried about how they would pay their heating bill, what was going to happen with their rent, where were they going to get food. And I saw schools really ramping up. I saw, at least within our Family Resource Center, there were calls, there was asks on how can we get the services we need. Schools were sitting in on meetings with us. And a good number of the referrals we got we joined forces with some other entities to offer an extra food pantry so that families would not have that stress. And those referrals came from our school social workers. They came from our school administrators, the people within the districts who knew there were things going on for families, and they tightened very quickly and gathered the information they needed to, and were referring people for prepared meals and food and resources and services. So I think that when we look at a net and when we begin to look at the strength of a community, schools are one of those places, as are the other agencies. And when we all work together and we weave together, families are stronger. And to allude to what Maria was talking about with Family Resource Centers, we each have our own flavor. We all operate within a similar set of principles, and we all have very similar philosophies around the strengths of families and the protective factors, and firmly believe that families do have a lot of capacity and skill within themselves to build upon. So we try to start with that platform and move families to their own wellness and their own success. And so across the state, all of us are doing similar work, but have different relationships with different entities. And so, I think at this point, Family Resource Centers are striving to work with whoever those other partners are. And I know for us within our school district, it's within we have programs that we share students with a variety of districts, and have found those relationships and those opportunities to build families up and to encourage families and to provide unified resources. The school can provide the computer and we provide the education. We provide the education, the school provides computer. It's really been a really nice combination of supports. And I think that if we can all continue to think in this fashion, that families will remain engaged and strong. And I too mirror the concern of, without putting our eyes on students and without seeing our kids in our classrooms and in our environments, there's always that what's happening wonder. But I do think that there are some really amazing things happening, and some families are reaching out and they're tapping into the warm lines and they're tapping into the resources that have been provided through a myriad of resources that have been offered during this time. So I'm hoping that folks can look at their own family resources in their own community and look at how that might strengthen the work you do every day, whether you're a teacher, a social worker, an administrator. Look at how your Family Resource Center can support you in the work you're doing, partner with you in the work you're doing, and be a place that perhaps can supplement some of the things that you're offering to your families. So we can all do this together. And I think I'm going to send that back to you, right, Maria? Going back to you.
Thank you so much. So this is a list of the Family Resource Centers in New Hampshire, but this is kind of hard to take in. So I wanted to let you know about two resources. One is a flyer that can be downloaded and is an interactive map, and I believe that Susan is going to share that with all of us. But I also wanted to let you know about two websites. One is Family Support New Hampshire is the network of family support and strengthening, and particularly the network for Family Resource Centers. They come together there. Brenda spoke so eloquently about the support, the principles that sort of, and the philosophies that underpin all Family Resource Centers. And it's really their connection through Family Support New Hampshire that allows them to get support for living out and applying those principles. So I would invite people to go. They have a really wonderful new website. This is a screenshot of their homepage, and they have an FRC locator there and with a map across the state. You can also find a similar resource at NewHampshireChildren'sTrust.org, which has a find a program near you. And in addition to being able to locate family resource centers, you can also locate home visiting programs. It's searchable by town, by age of child, and a number of different parameters, where you can find across the state how to reach Healthy Family America home visiting programs, early Head Start home visiting programs, just general home visiting programs that are voluntary, usually at no cost to the participant, and also family resource centers can be located there. This is our contact information. Invite you to screenshot it or look at pause the recording, and this is where the number, the warm line number, and there's more information about it at Waypoint's website. And I invite you to reach out and be in touch with us if you feel like we can help you make a connection to your local family resource center, or answer any questions that you have. I'm just going to share that interactive map. So it's right here. This is on NewHampshireChildren'sTrust.org/connect. And here you can find a map that is available for download and also has the contact information for each of the family resource centers in New Hampshire. So I invite you to visit our website and download that and connect with the family resource centers. And many of them, I would really, if you don't see one exactly in your school district, I would contact the one closest to you, because many family resource centers have satellite sites, or would be open for partnerships about how to bring their services to communities close to them, but maybe not exactly in the community that they're located.
This is such great information. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. And I heard a couple of underlying themes. One that I heard was just, when we're thinking of like protective factors and helping our students, it's important to connect to agencies, but that's not just it. It's also important to connect socially, find your support systems, make connecting relationships and things like that. And in finding support in one another. So I thought that was really interesting that's, and important, that's the message that's being sent to families.
Absolutely. I mean, we know that the 5 characteristics, the 5 protective factors are for every family. And we know when they're present and robust, they, that families are their best. The protective factor that has the strongest research base behind it is social connection. Like, how many times can any of us think about a challenge that we faced that was easier because there was someone we could turn to? And so family resource centers are not just about providing practitioners to form a relationship with a family, although that's very important, but are also about facilitating connections for families between each other.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's huge, having those multiple support systems, professional and personal, and just making those connections and important relationships is huge. And then I know, Brenda, you had mentioned how you kind of wanted to thank the educators for just allowing families, especially during March when everything was happening, to just kind of open their space up and allow parents and families to just say, hey, this is what's happening. I don't know what to do. I'm kind of looking to you for answers. And, where can you where can you steer me in the right direction? And I love that you said that, because it's so true. Like our educators are at the front line and they're dealing with a lot of things. And for them to be well versed in, well, they're already well versed in so much already for our students, but just to know the resources, those local and in New Hampshire resources that they can provide families when families open up and say, hey, listen, I've never gone through this before and I'm struggling. We're struggling. Can you help me? Do you have anything that you can share with me? So I think it's great that we're doing this and great that we're getting this information out too, because that's huge. We have so many new struggling families out there. So I just wanted to say, I love that you touched on that. So thank you.
You bet.
And I know as far as Waypoint, I think it's really interesting that, all of a sudden there's a warm line, how do we get this, activated and moving? And then, oh, it's so successful, let's keep doing it.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that we've done for many years is really sort of figure out what the need is, and then we'll figure out how to do it and how to fund it, and we'll fundraise or figure it out. And I think this is a very good example. We started it before we knew how we're going to pay for it, but we knew we had the professionals that were willing and eager to really provide the support to the families that were struggling. And we thought it was a really great resource that we had. In terms of the connectivity, Susan, that you were mentioning, how family resource centers are sort of this magnet of connectivity for families. This has been actually a little more challenging now because we used to run at Waypoint and the Upper Room and many of the other family resource centers groups. We had a grandparents group, we had all kinds of groups happening. And obviously for safety reasons, those groups are not happening right now. So certainly what we've done at Waypoint is reached out to families by actually, going to their homes when it's been safe. Or when the weather, it's been really wonderful around the summer, is we were engaged the family and the kids outside in activities. And the same way teachers have been so creative and so stretching themselves to do all kinds of things. I have to say that a lot of our social workers and family support workers have used really the creativity to connect with these families in the community, in the parks, and actually sometimes even connect two families to each other. So there was this socialization that's so important for kids in these ages.
It's just been, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Maria.
It's just been incredible to just the creativity that programs have shown, both with providing virtual. Many groups went into virtual space. There's a family resource center in Tilton that's running a play group that sometimes has an international audience. It's really opened up some doors, and some families, some centers have reported that being virtual and perhaps using texting or other things that maybe would have been seen as a less preferable way of connecting with families in the past has really provided opportunities and pathways for families to become connected when they were less or more reluctant to do so in the past. So it's really expanded and provided, the blessings of COVID. They've really been provided opportunities to think differently about how we connect with families and how families are supported again for each other and to each other, and for how the centers support families, and just such creativity, whether it be how they do a virtual group or, I've heard about, as groups started to gather, like using hula hoops, of having a play group where you meet outside and every parent and child gets a hula hoop and stays inside the hula hoop in order to enforce social distancing. Just wonderful, wonderful creativity to get people outside their doors and to connect to each other and get that support.
Yeah, if I may add, Maria, one of the things that it's a sort of an unintended partnership, but an important one, is the fact that oftentimes we could not connect with families because they didn't have the technology. But the schools did such an incredible job putting really computers in the hands of kids. And that was not just important for the teaching, it was important for us as providers to be able to keep the connection with the families. So we were so grateful that those computers were there for the kids to learn, but also to keep the connection with the family support specialists or the home visitors to continue the services and the support. So That was another partnership that was maybe unintended, but really important in that way.
Yeah, Borja, I'd like to add on that, that I think we also saw, and it's still continuing, some of the grandparents and parents that we would have never had in our parenting classes are now engaging in virtual classes. You know, the chicken before the egg, right? Which came first, the crisis or the need? And so we've got families now engaging in services and programs and telehealth and that kind of thing, thanks to having access to internet and knowing how to use it now. Some of them didn't know how to get into a Zoom, but because of kids having to be on a Zoom call or another type of call, they were then able to access services that they would have never entered into. So I think it's always good to look at, not that we aren't in a really critical situation, but there is some good to some of the things people are learning. And I think we're touching people that we may not have touched without these resources. So, yeah.
And I think, Brenda, I mean, I think it's probably true for the upper room as well, is when we're thinking about where this is going, we're not actually going to get rid of the virtual groups, because there are families for which it really works very, very well. So it's going to be a hybrid model. Some people are going to be sort of in the space and some people are going to be virtual. But I agree, this is going to, what it has meant is that we're reaching out to more families, which is great.
Right. I mean, you know, when we talk about some of the barriers for families receiving services, it is transportation and time. If parents are working and they can't get one of their students to a class, or they themselves can't, somebody else is borrowing the car, that becomes a barrier. And without that barrier, they're able to access the service. So I think those are all really important ways to think about the work we do. I know we're all shifting the way we think about what a year from now is going to look like. And I think that the shakeup is probably a really positive thing in some ways. Yep.
And I also want to sort of extend an invitation to any teacher, administrator, or social worker in the school system. If they have concerns about kids and if they know they're receiving services from any one of us, please let's make sure we sort of get a release of information and start talking, because it really takes a whole village to wrap around services around these kids. And I think we need to be communicating with each other. And I know it's adding yet another 10 minutes or 15 minutes of a conversation, but it really sometimes is a difference that makes a difference for the lives of these kids. So I would really encourage those communications to continue.
Thank you. I think that's such an important message, and it does take a village. And we're so lucky in a way that we've had this creative experience to think of different ways and how we're going to reach these families, and realizing that, hey, you know, technology and Zoom meetings might actually work, not just during this time where everyone has to stay physically separated, but if it's working so well and has allowed a lot of people who couldn't attend before to now attend, it's like, why not? Let's just keep doing it. If it works, let's just keep that going. Brenda, I know you had mentioned a few minutes ago about, you had talked about family resources and classes. I didn't know if you could tell me just a little bit more about that, and like some of the different resources that the Family Resource Center provides.
Well, speaking for my own, that's what I can speak to. We have a variety of educational programs, a lot of parenting programs, grandparenting programs, parent-child support groups. We do some counseling. We have a lot of adolescent programs, substance misuse programs, a juvenile diversion program. We offer community service for teens. We have a group called Teen Talk, which is just a free drop-in weekly group session for teens who just might need an adult to speak with and talk to. We have a teen parenting program. We have a young adult strategies program, which is working with young adults with substance misuse. And our High Set program is our program that we partner with our high school. So we're offering a high school alternative program through our local high school. We are also supporting our high schools with out of school suspension programs as well. So students are receiving academic and other support to continue on their path towards completing their education. So we have a food pantry and some other resources. And obviously, like every other family resource center, we are a resource and referral agency. So we will sit with a family and connect them to whatever it is that they need through conversation, through those hour-long conversations that Borja spoke about. We really want to get to know the family and know what they need and connect them to what is important to them. And we work really closely. We are not the experts in any of these fields. We have great connections with the experts in those fields, our mental health centers, our judicial systems, our schools, and those other agencies that support families. So I think that answers it, I hope. Yeah.
And Sue, this is Susan, this is Sue. And I just want to say that Brenda's one of them, but the division does contract with 8 family resource centers. There are 8 agencies, 11 contracts, though one for each, connected to each DCYF district office that provides home visiting. So if a family is unsure about going to a center or going to a parenting education group, they can have individual supports in a home visiting program. And it does not, I want to say home visiting, but it doesn't necessarily have to be in their home. We go where they're comfortable. Like Brenda said, we've met at the park, we meet at McDonald's, we meet at the coffee shop, we'll meet in somebody's backyard. We've met at schools when schools were open. We've gone to doctor's offices when they've been open for teen moms who are uncomfortable having us come into their homes, or they don't want their parents necessarily to know sort of what's going on. We've gone to medical centers and met with teen moms there and at schools. So with family resource centers and with the options, like Maria said, if you go to FSNH or New Hampshire Children's Trust to find a program near you, home visiting may be more personable and maybe more to suit those families, or there are those group settings. So we really want to emphasize to everyone that whatever modality works for the family, that there's somebody or something out there that will meet those needs, that it doesn't have to be just one modality. And I know that as teachers, that's what you guys all strive for, administrators strive for every day in the classroom, what modality is going to work for your learners and for your students. And that's what we hope to, is to find that modality that works for those families. If it's just the warm, calling the warm line, and that's what they need, is that one person for a short period of time, or to get connected, or it's going to their family resource center or calling a home visiting program. That's the big emphasis that I think we want to say, is that we are here. It's all about strengthening families and whatever modality works for them. And now, like I think Borja and Brenda said, and Maria, that, the blessings of COVID is that now we have telehealth, and our home visitors and our family support staff have become much more comfortable, I'm sure, just like many of you, with what was not the norm and now has become the norm. And it has been amazing to watch family support workers do amazing things with online telehealth.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like this has been so informative, and I'm hoping that educators email us or put in the chat any questions that they have, and or email you directly, since you have your contact information right here. And if that's the case, then we will definitely make sure we get back to you and get you the information that you need. So thanks for tuning in. And I want to thank the live panel. If there's nothing else that you have to add, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules as well, and providing this information and making sure educators and school administrators and staff just have all of the resources they need, and really just understand how we can all work together to really support the wellness of students. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. All right. Thanks everyone for joining.
Take care.